Hello and welcome to Leading Sales, the only interview-based podcast where we discuss the challenges and experiences of two of the most critical disciplines in business today, leadership and sales. Our podcast brings together industry experts, thought leaders, and authors to share insights, strategies, and real-life stories to inspire and educate our listeners on the art, science, and the dynamics of leadership and sales. And now, your host, George Galas Sr.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Leading Sales. Our special guest today is Michael Vickers, a sales coach, keynote speaker, podcast host, and best-selling author of two highly influential books, Becoming Preferred and Dance of the Rainmaker. Michael has spent decades helping leaders, entrepreneurs, and sales professionals not only stand out in crowded markets, but become the go-to choice for their clients. His work dives deep into things like influence, trust, and building relationships that last. In our conversation today, we'll explore what it really takes to become preferred, the mindset of a true rainmaker, and how these principles apply in today's fast-changing, digital-first world. Welcome to the program, Michael.
Hey, George. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. So where are you joining us from today?
I'm up in Calgary. You used to live here. I think we met here about 25 years ago. I was just doing the math. And at least 25 years ago.
I think it was exactly the year 2000. We were introduced by a dear friend of ours that passed away, unfortunately. But yeah, 25 years ago. Time flies. How's Calgary?
It's big and it's growing and nice and hot this time of year. So no, we're enjoying it. It's all good.
Excellent. So Mike, you've been around for a while. You've been doing this for a while. Please tell our listeners, how did you get started? Where did Michael come from?
Sure. Well, I started early in a career. I had a career early in sales. My parents had a retail, they had a health food store. And I remember, I started packing nuts and almonds and all kinds of things for the health food store. And then I got to work at the cash register. And then from there, I had a paper route. And then from there, once I started earning my own money, I decided, hey, wait a minute, how can I earn more of this? And I would go in and, for instance, I'd go into our neighborhood. I grew up in a small town in British Columbia up in Canada. And I would go rent a rototiller for, $50 for a week. And then I'd go around to the neighbors and sell rototillering services for $5 or $10 to do their yards. And, I'd make my money back in 1 day or 2 days. So then I realized I could have more cash than working. Minimum wage was like $2.35 an hour. So once I learned we could sell things and dictate your own income, I was kind of hooked. And it was about this is actually an interesting story. I was in San Francisco and I wasn't doing so well. And there was a sales champion, a sales trainer, speaker by the name of Tom Hopkins. And he was in the 70s, big guy. And I couldn't afford the $1,000 tuition. So I put on a suit and I snuck into his seminar. 3 days I attended this thing and snuck in and no one said anything. I minded my own business. And boy, that kind of set me on fire. Once I learned that there was a process to this and you could learn what questions to ask, like you learn how to present yourself, how all aspects of selling, I started to adapt it and I started to excel. Now, just to go full circle on the story, 10 years later, he came back to the city and I actually bought a ticket to his sales conference, and I took him a check plus interest for the one that I jumped in, and he appreciated it, and I kind of became a little story for him, and it was fine. But then I started to look and study the masters, the people who have been doing it, because really it's real about looking at what's worked, what hasn't, and there's been an evolution, as you know, in selling. How we sold 25 years ago is different from today versus 10 years ago.
So you and I have one or two things in common for sure. I remember I was 13 years old when I made my first money selling sodas on the side of soccer fields. In my neighborhood, there were championships all the time, weekends, and I figured that I could, because I'm from Chile, as you know, and I lived in the northern part of Chile in the border with Peru. So I would cross the border with my dad, buy cheap sodas, bring them over, and then I would sell them on the side of the soccer fields for a profit. So that was my first well-earned buck. So Michael, Let's talk about widgets versus services. Is there a difference? And what is the role that trust plays in whatever you're selling, being widgets or services?
Well, I think, and I don't think it really matters. The service is a product is a product. So whatever it is we're selling is a solution to a problem. I believe trust is the foundation of all relationships. If they don't trust you, if they don't know you, they don't like you, they're not going to buy from you. So how do we build trust? And I think our first job as sales professionals is to build trust quickly. So how do we build trust and authority and credibility quickly? And I think that's the goal for all of us. And so it's really about doing your homework. I think it's really about, I mean, trust is everything. If they trust you, they'll buy from you. And I think salespeople, if you're going through the old model, you're walking down the mall and somebody's handing you out a package as a sample, or you're walking into a cell phone store and you're looking at a device and they're trying to sell you a widget, and you may or may not even want that widget. So with B2C or B2B, it's still based on trust. And so if you come across and you're too quick on it, you're not taking time to understand what my needs are, what my requirements are, and you just want to push a product or a service down my throat, it's going to be evident. And I'm going to pay attention to it. I'm going to know that you're not acting in my best interest. So I think trust is critical. It's essential. I think it's one of the first elements we have to try and build upon.
That's right. And I'm sure we have listeners right now that are selling products and services. And at the end of the day, as you said, trust is at the very foundation of that practice. Now, sales teams, and you coach and train multiple sales teams, and you do it for companies of all sizes. What is wrong with sales organizations, in your opinion? Why is it that companies go through salespeople? There's a lot of replacement, there's a lot of turnout, and the salespeople turn to succeed and fail, succeed and fail. And why is it that consistency is hard to achieve?
Well, that's a great question. And you're talking about churn. And I think what leaders fail to do is to identify the actions and activities of the sales force and link it and align it to the values and the purpose of the organization and the salesperson. So one of the first things I want to know, if I'm interviewing for you for a job and you're moving from job to job and you're going through it, because people get burned out or they get bored, I want to know what you value. I want to know what your goal is, George. I want to know, why are you doing this? What's the motivation? Which size your family? You got kids? Why are you earning? How important is this? Where do you want to be? What's the goal? And I'm going to align our goals and objectives with yours. And if I can create alignment and find out what motivates you. So for some people, it's money. For some people, it's ideals. For some people, it's their values. Some people, it's purpose. And based on the generation, I'm a baby boomer. So for me, it was always about earning money. That was my major one motivation. But for younger people today, they're more purpose driven. So they want the organization, they want to know that their activities are going to lead to something that's meaningful for the planet or for whatever that cause is. So I think that's a failure with organizations. Instead, they bring in salespeople, they give them quotas, and it's just burn and churn. And they're just going through numbers, and they're pitching their clients, and not meaningful conversations. It's just pure volume. We call it pitch slapping. So they're busy, pitch slapping the client, trying to sell them something just to get their numbers and their quotas instead of working on the process. So what I try and focus on is, don't worry about the revenue, don't worry about the income, put an equal sign in front of that. What's the formula that I've got to do and follow? What are the steps that I need to do in my recipe that automatically create an outcome of revenue? And I think we don't spend any time on that part of the process, and we treat everybody the same without tailoring it to that specific individual.
And how important is product knowledge for salespeople to be successful? In other words, do I need to be an expert to be a good salesperson, or are my soft skills enough to succeed?
Yeah, I think soft skills, and this is from your roles, is because you've been a sales engineer in your career and you have product knowledge and you understand it. But really, it's knowing how to solve the problems. Do you know how to get the right people in the room, the right bodies in the room, right people at the table? So when it comes to, I think the soft skills are important. If you get too technical people, they're really not good at the soft skills. And it's they come to the meetings and they want to share technical information, but there's all these other steps. There's a time and a place for that. But when it comes to it, it's about being able to access what their goals are. What's the objective of the organization? It's how to manage that, how to schmooze, if you want to use a term.
Yep.
How to work on that relationship, how to go for lunch and have a good, meaningful lunch, how to build a relationship of trust and how to do it quickly. You can always learn what you got to learn. So for me, it's higher attitude, train for skill.
That's right. And you know, in my career, I've been lucky to work for many different companies of all sizes, both in sales and also leading sales teams and also in general management and leadership. But what I've learned is that customers, by definition, tend to not trust salespeople.
Right.
And I've been one of them. I know, and I think recognizing the fact that by definition, we're not trusted to begin with. So that's why your point is so important. We have to work on building trust.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. You know, an example comes to mind of a major oil services company, and like major supplier, they're worldwide, they're global. But what I'll mention is, you know, Dick Cheney used to work for them. And so you can put two and two together. And we were doing training for them. And I was noticing patterns with their salespeople that they were hiring people from the industry. And so the problem is we were getting, I call it inbreeding. So you got bad habits and then they move from company to company to company. And when we're interviewing them, we want people who had some experience in that, you know, whether it's completions, whether it's fracking, whatever it was in the oil and gas industry. And so I convinced the sales VP, I said, let me make your next hire for you instead, because I see a problem here.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and hired the number one salesperson from a furniture shop. And we hired him. And in 6 months, he was the number one salesperson for the oil services company. Knew nothing about the products, nothing about the tools, nothing about the service, but he knew how to build relationships of trust quickly. And usually it's a matter of being authentic. It's telling the story. It's letting them know. It's the vibe that you give off. Are you giving a good vibe off, a trustworthy vibe? People know their instincts go off, their spider senses go off, and they know, hey, I can't trust this person. So one of the quick, don't say yes to everything. If you don't know, hey, we've got a subject matter expert, to your point, we'll bring them in. We've got the best experts. Let me bring it. My job's to quarterback this and call the plays and then
Exactly.
tee you up with it. So yeah, no, I agree with you. It's higher attitude, train for the skill.
A good salesperson can sell the phone book. Is that the same?
Yeah.
So some kids right now don't even know what a phone book is, but that's a different story. Let's talk about product quality. We have all been in situations where we are selling a lower quality product, an inferior product. And then we've been lucky enough to be on the other side of the table selling a superior quality product. What is the difference? How is it that salespeople can succeed in either scenario?
Well, I think the product is, whether it's good quality or poor quality, is a variable for sure, but can be overcome. And based on what that market is, there's always a customer for that particular product or service. So I think the key would be, what are the features? Instead of going in and hawking, you know, features and benefits, which a lot of salespeople do and marketing companies do, is we go in and we identify what's their application. What are they trying to achieve? What's the outcome? So a good example comes to mind. For instance, let's go back. Again, the young people might not remember this, but definitely not, but VHS versus beta video recorders, right? Sony invented both formats. The greater format was beta. If you ask them which was the better, it's still used in broadcast today. VHS, they sold it off because it was the inferior technology to Matsushita, who cross-licensed it to 5 other manufacturers, better distribution, and voila. And you know which one won? The VHS won, and it was an inferior product. So we're all using an inferior technology because of a story or a marketing strategy or a sales. So people get stuck in it and use it, but the best product doesn't always win. All right, the best story wins.
And people buy trust. People buy the experience, and we see it every day in our daily lives. We go to a restaurant, and the food may be just okay, but if the experience was outstanding, we probably will go back and we will probably give a good tip. On the other hand, if in the restaurant the food was great, but the service was lousy, probably we're not going back. So same thing, we're buying the experience, we're buying trust. Another example that I always give is, let's say we're renovating the kitchen in the house. Who are you going to hire? Are you going to hire the highest price or the lowest price? No, you're going to hire the crew that you trust that can do the job without making a mess in your house, so to speak, right?
Right. Well, and like I say, the best product doesn't always win and doesn't have to win. As long as you're good enough to be at the table and provide a solution that is functional and works. It's kind of like the name brand versus the generic. Here's one thing we know. Let's take Tylenol. McNeil, Tylenol, that's the brand. When the brand is selling for $10 a bottle and the generic at the drugstore is $8, people will buy the $8 generic. They just will. Or $7. That becomes maybe their first choice unless they're brand conscious. If you mark them at the same price and they're both $8, they'll buy the Tylenol brand. They'll buy the brand to it, but the brand doesn't mean it's the best one at all. We've seen many, many examples of that. So the best brand doesn't win, the best story wins.
So let's talk about becoming preferred. The first book you wrote, you remember when you wrote that book?
Yeah, 20 years ago. We just had our 20th anniversary.
20 years ago. Congratulations. I have a few copies of it. So in there's many concepts that resonated with me when I first read it. But one little formula stuck with me for the rest of my life. And I read it 20 years ago because probably I received one of the first copies. And that formula had helped me through my career, through my personal life. I have passed it on to so many people, including my own kids. And that formula, I'll let you introduce the formula and explain it to our listeners so you can tell us the importance of each one of those three elements in that formula.
Okay, so on the distinctive value, and the formula was DV times Q equals W, or it can also be an R for revenue if you want to use it that way. When I look at an organization or I'm looking at a product, are you bringing value to the organization, to the client, to the marketplace, or is it distinctive? Is it unique? Is it rare? Is it precious? The market will pay a premium for things that are unique, rare, or precious. So how do we become unique, rare, or precious? Well, if your product's a commodity and I can go buy something that's just like it somewhere else, cheaper, a little more expensive, whatever, you just bring value. It's not distinctive. It's not unique. So when you only bring value to the marketplace, now you need Q, which we call distribution. Q is your distribution. How many locations is it in? How many places is it in? Don't worry about the revenue. Don't worry about the wealth, because it's always an end result of those two other variables. So do you have a DV problem or do you have a Q problem, distribution problem? So perfect example. We're both, speakers. We speak in the keynote presentations, and that makes us distinctive. That makes us unique, because not everyone wants to do that. Most people hate public speaking or speaking to a big audience. So put you in front of 1,000 people, you're right at home. You know how to do it.
The bigger, the better.
The bigger, the better. And me too. It's like, this is great. Smaller audiences, that's where it gets nerve-wracking. It's like small people in the room. So that your value is now distinctive. So how do you grow your wealth or your revenue? You need more engagements. We call them gigs. You need more gigs. And so if you're doing 100 gigs, I can only do the math on this. So it's always about increasing your value. If all of a sudden you have a product that's just valuable, again, you need a queue, a distribution system. So we need lots in our pipeline. We need lots of activity. And that's really how the formula works. So I'm always personally, I believe in distinctive value. How do I make it so unique, so rare, nobody's doing what you're doing? And you can do that in any role in an organization and at any company level. So it's what you're going to bring to the table. You're part of the equation. So there's three things. There's three pillars, what I call a value within the organization, right? So if I'm talking to you, George, I'm going to go, okay, pillar number one, let me tell you about the company, George. So you get to deal with Summit. Here's our company. Here's what we do. Here's who our clients are. Here's what we've done. Here's what we're really good at. So my pillar number one is the company itself. Number two, we've been around, our reputation, our reviews, whatever it is. Testimonials, you can go wherever you want on that. Second part of that and pillar is our products or our services. So here's our products and our services. Here's why people like them. Here's what they work best. Here's the part. That's pillar number two. Now, the product portion of this, by the way, is only 1/3 of the total value the client's even going to receive. So we've got 2/3 covered. We got the company, we got the product. There's 2/3. And the last pillar, which is the third of the entire value offering, is you get me. Here's me. And this is where you do the Jerry Maguire. You remember in the movie where he's losing all his clients and he gets down to Cuba Gooding Jr. and Cuba Gooding's going, I'm not feeling the loving, Jerry. And he goes, I will walk on broken glass for you. I'll do this for you. I'll show up for you this. I'll do this. I'll do that. Clients want Jerry Maguires.
Yes.
So when you show up selling your widget or your service, the product only represents 1/3. You're a third and the company's a third. So make sure you're telling that story and positioning all three pillars of value.
And for those listeners that are in the world of executing projects, many in the energy industry and many other industries, they live off building long projects, the EPC world and those type of companies. The trust and the one that needs to show up are the team members that are going to execute the project, right? The project manager, the technical leaders, the engineers, all of those. Bring them in. They're not salespeople, but bring them in your sales conversations, because those are the ones that are going to help you build trust. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. It's bringing, if you think of it as the analogy I would use is a doctor. So when you go to the doctor's office, in today's medicine, and you walk into the doctor and the doctor says to you, "Hi, George, welcome to the clinic. Welcome to the office. Happy to have you." And you're going, "Oh, great. Happy to be here. I've just moved into the neighborhood, so I'm happy to be here as a clinic." "Well, George, let me show you all the pills that I have. I got green pills, blue pills, purple pills, yellow pills, white pills, black pills. What kind of pill were you looking for today there, George?" And you're going, "I think I'm in the wrong place. What I want to see is diagnosis before prescription, because prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. Instead, I'm going to go, 'Hey, George, I need you to pee in a cup. We're going to take some blood. We're going to tell me about your family history. What have you done? I'm going to talk to you, understand you.'" Stephen Covey has a great, I think it was his fifth habit. Seek first to understand the client, where they're coming from. Where are they coming from? What's the goal? What's the outcome? Then seek to be understood. So we don't talk about our products and services until we know where they're coming from. And then as a doctor, I might go, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to send you to go see an oncologist. I'm going to go send you to see a urologist. I'm going to send you to, you need to go to, wherever you're going to go, I'm going to quarterback you and refer you to an expert." So if you follow that model, it's actually a good, successful model, and it works like a charm. And that's what goes to building trust. If the doctor says, "Hey, I can handle all of these things," you're kind of going, "I'm not so sure. I might be dealing with a quack here."
Great advice. Now, let me take you back to the pandemic. Remember when it seems like yesterday, but it's been a few years already. Year 2020, right?
Right,
2020.
March.
And the world changed, and we went from in-person relationships, in-person dealings, to complete isolation and having to learn how to deal with coworkers, bosses, clients remotely. And now we are in a hybrid forever environment. There's no going back to that full in-person realm. How did it change for you in your business? And how do you see these hybrid salespeople building trust and relationships now?
Oh, that's a great question. It definitely changed things the way we did it. Well, so for me, it's a blessing. So at first, when it happens, of course, all our contracts get canceled, everything happens. I cried for a week. But then it's like, okay, suck it up, Buttercup. What can I do to change this and adapt to it? So before, I could get 8 or 10 meetings in a week in my city, and I had to fly. If I wanted to fly to Chicago or Dallas or Houston, where you are, I've got to fly there, go do the meetings, turn around, fly back. So it's a flight there. I'm paying all the taxes. My whole day's taken up in travel. I get my meetings, then I turn around, fly back. There's 3 days right there, and that's just with 1 day of sales calls. So with Zoom, and when that comes on, now I can gain access quickly. And let me just put a caveat here. I think if you're in a location where you're selling in your city, it's still good to have that first meeting. If you can do it in person, I think it's good, but all the subsequent meetings you could do online, whatever is easier. But now we offer our training products, our coaching products, our virtual, we do hybrids. I now work all over the world. And so the world opened up for me. I rarely sell here in Calgary or in our office in Phoenix. I rarely work at home in either of those two locations. And when I do hop on a plane, I'm hopping on because I've got an engagement and I'm going to go deliver and I'm part of the execution. Or 90% of my meetings, I'll do 5, 6 meetings a day, where if I'd get 8 or 10 in a week, I was doing well before. So now I can do 3, 4 times the productivity. So now the next question is, how do we build trust and credibility? So if you're doing meetings by Zoom, what's the experience look like? So for instance, we're on video, you and I, and we're recording here. What's your lighting like? What's your framing like? What's your sound like? We're using professional microphones. We have professional cameras. And you don't have to spend a lot of money, but we're using good stuff. We're lighting it up, and we have a set. You've got good sound, you've got good lighting, and this is how we want to communicate. That's your brand experience. And as far as the building the trust, I do it through questions. So I'm doing my homework. So a good example, and this is actually a good topic. You actually raised an issue that's common. I've been a pilot for over 40 years. And if I'm flying from, and we've talked about this, but if I'm flying from Calgary to Houston, I'm looking at Houston as my destination. That's the outcome. I know it's going to take me 6 hours in an airplane, right, for me to go versus commercial. I'm going to check the weather. I'm going to have a flight plan. I'm going to know what's the weather like when I arrive in Houston. You get those thunderstorms, every afternoon, that come in the summertime. How much fuel do I need? What are my stops along the way? What are the emergencies? What if plan A doesn't work and I need an alternate? So just like in commercial airlines. And so a lot of planning goes into every call. Well, how many salespeople do you know? And I know you've worked with teams, they don't plan their sales calls, they wing it. And so there's no flight plan. There's no pre-flighting. And so they go in and it doesn't really go anywhere, or what was the purpose of that meeting? So the one question, and we do it with our own podcast interviews, the way I know I've got a good interview going or that the client's happy is when the podcast guest says to me, and this is my goal, oh, that's a good question. Oh, great question. And so we prepare every meeting ahead of time. So I never walk into a meeting and wing it. But for the most part, most salespeople don't pre-flight. They don't do any flight planning whatsoever. And half the time they end up crashing on their way to, trying to get a deal.
So we established that trust is at the very foundation of every relationship, and also being prepared, showing up prepared, doing your homework. But let's face it, people do business with people they like.
That's right.
And building like that relationship where the buyer needs to like you first. And if you haven't met him ever, and this is your first engagement, and you are meeting virtually for whatever reason, you cannot be in person, it must be trickier, it must be more challenging to build that relationship where you can like each other. And also I see time and time again where salespeople are not honest with themselves. They see that they're not clicking and they insist on trying to do business with the buyer, right? Instead of firing myself, I need to get out of the way. I'm not the right pair for this relationship. I need to bring somebody else instead. It's being honest with yourself, being honest with your team, being honest with your boss, get out of the way, bring a different person in. Don't you agree?
Yeah, there's different personality styles. There's 5 generations of buyers out in the marketplace now. 5 generations.
5
of them. And so how do we approach each one? So a Gen Z, I'm going to talk to a Gen Z different than I am somebody else. So let's go to the likability aspect of it. So I'm older now. I've been doing this a long time. I'm 65. I work out, so I try and stay in shape. When I go and do a keynote presentation, I used to show up with the suit, and I would show up with the suit, cufflinks, the foulard. We looked sharp. We were looking good and doing it. But now nobody wears suits. So Steve Jobs started this whole thing where he showed up in a turtleneck and jeans. And I don't show up in a turtleneck and jeans, but I just wear a shirt that's untucked. I actually use an untucked shirt, a pair of slacks. I roll up my sleeve a little bit just to show a little bit of tattoo. I got a few tattoos, but I always hide them. But I show just a little, and I call it a tat tease, because now the audience looks, because most of them have tattoos, because I'm the oldest guy in the room, and they're going, okay, that guy's not my dad. So that's my first, and then I will use terms to create the likability. So for instance, let's say I'm talking to a group with a bunch of millennials. I might say to them, hey, how many are millennials? Hands all go up. I said, how many of you ever heard that a millennial, because we're looking for common ground here, right? That's common ground goes to the foundation of likability. And so how many of you been told that you're entitled? You're an entitled generation. And most of the hands go up. And I go, well, I'm a baby boomer and I think you should be entitled. I said, you should be entitled to safe streets, safe cities, clean water, clean air, be able to take your family, kids to go to school, be able to go to college, come out and get a good job and pay off that loan without going into debt for the rest of your life. You should be able to afford a home. When I get done, I'm getting applause, standing ovation, and they're going, okay, he's on our team. Now, not everyone wants to get into the personal. So on a first meeting, a lot of times they don't get personal. But if I'm doing a meeting and there's 5 people going to be on their committee, I do my homework. I look at every one of them. I have some notes. I know where they went to school, and I'm looking for something to talk about, because they usually have their personal interests, or maybe they follow somebody or they like somebody. And I'm going, hey, we have a couple of things in common. I notice. So look for commonality. Do you have children, family? So I will open the door wherever I can and look for commonality. So one of my favorite questions when I'm asking a client, and I've worked with, for instance, say engineers, very factual. They want to get down to the facts. They don't want a lot of chit chat. Some do, some don't. But when I'm leaving the meeting, I do what I call the Columbo question. And I'll shake hands with you. And I'll go, George, this was really nice meeting with you. Thank you very much for your input. Hey, George, when you're not working 60 hours a week, when you're not working 12 hours a day, what do you do for fun? And then I shut up and let them finish. Well, that's where the magic happens. Then they go, oh, I like to read books. Oh, what kind of books? Fiction or nonfiction? Nonfiction. Who do you like to read? such and such. I was just at a conference in Las Vegas. I was speaking with Damon John from Shark Tank. I was a keynote Monday. He was a keynote Tuesday. Great event. He does a phenomenal job. If you ever get him on your podcast, he's awesome. But I'm talking to the meeting planner. What kind of books do you like to read? She goes, fiction and historical fiction. And I said, I bet I can name your favorite book. And she goes, go for it. And I said, Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. And she looked at me and her eyes got bulging. She goes, oh my God, how did you know that? And I said, it's one of my favorites. And it's usually one of the favorites for people who have historical fiction. So it's knowing that, well, now I got a friend. So now I know if I'm going to do things he just came out with a new book, I can send her a copy of that book and say, hey, this just came out. It made me think of you. I thought I'd send it to you. And I'll send her a book and take care of it. And I like to use books. And, we've talked about that. That's the way I do it. But I want to find out what they're interested in and then try and link them up. What do they do on a personal level when they're not working? Because think about it. Why do we work? We work for our families. We work to do more of the things we love to do and enjoy. That's the why of why you're doing what you're doing. So why not go right to what you want to be doing? And the more I can help you do that, the more you're going to like me and trust me.
Great advice for sure. From becoming preferred, how many years later did you write Dance of the Rainmaker?
I think it was that's a good question. 2015, I think. So maybe 10 years later. And I'm actually looking at becoming preferred 2.0. We're working on that now, which is 20 years. So 2.0, so 20 years. And it's still relevant. When I'm still speaking in conferences, half the companies still use it as their theme. So the subject matter is still relevant. It's my number one program. Dance of the Rainmaker was more detail in the process. So rainmakers are within organizations where the people go out and make it rain. So there's hunters and there's farmers. Farmers, typically farmers, they're good at handling an account. They're good at tilling the ground. They're good at looking at, if a deer runs across their property, they could probably shoot it and everybody's going to eat. But a hunter will go out and find business where there is no business or looking for opportunities. So Dance of the Rainmaker, what are the activities? What are the steps that we have to do? And it's really about how to help people become better at hunting. The good news is with today's technologies and where we are, farmers can become excellent rainmakers. So your environment matters, but rainmakers are the ones that create it, and there will always be a job for rainmakers. So farmers, AI might hurt you, right? Because we can look after the client, create experiences that way, but you want to learn how to do some hunting. And that's what are the rainmakers doing? And how do you find an opportunity where there might not be any opportunity to start with? So it's about being curious and learning to ask the right questions to uncover those opportunities rather than just features and benefits of a product or service.
That's right. Now, in the corporate world, salespeople suffer from this. We are successful today, we make quota, and then we get good notes, congratulations, you're the best salesperson ever. Tomorrow is a brand new day. Forget about it. You start from zero again. Where's my quota? And so you're a rainmaker today and you're nobody tomorrow. What's your advice for all those salespeople listening to our show today? How can they navigate successfully these waters and be a consistent rainmaker?
Well, this goes to the point you made earlier about people and churn and why people leave. So let's say, and it's a fault of managers and leadership. So how would we address that and what would I do? So let's say your sales quota was $1 million a year, and I give you all the tools, everything to do $1 million a year, and you work your butt off. You work 100, you're literally 2,000 plus hours a year. You're working out, you're exhausted. You're absolutely exhausted. You're doing everything right, and you hit your number, and we give you a bonus. So you might get a 10% bonus, 20%, whatever the acceleration or the bonus is going to be. Well, then your manager thinks, okay, I've got to drive the numbers now. So we're going to raise your quota now to 1.25 or 1.50 or 1.3, whatever the number is. So I want a 25% bump in the sales. Well, you just finished working your butt off, and I'm not going to give you any more tools. I'm not going to give you any bigger accounts. Now you've got to even work harder. That's demoralizing. So what happens is they slow down. So year two, they only do 800,000. And they go, this is exhausting. I can't do this. I'm happy with 800. I'll do 800. So now you do 800 and you don't get your bonus. So now you're dissatisfied. You're starting to get a little demoralized. So now your manager comes in and he lowers your quota again the next year. Oh, the marketplace is hard. Your new quota is 800,000. Well, now you blow past it again with another million and your bonus. So you end up with a peak and valley, peak and valley, peak and valley. And this is a fault of leadership and a fault of management. If it was me, I would say your quota is $1 million, George, and you hit your million, you're going to get bonus. Now, Anything over $1 million, I've scaled bonuses. So you want to work even harder in what you're doing, 1.25, you're going to get even a bigger acceleration or a bigger percentage that goes to it. So as long as you hit your quota, you're always going to get that extra bonus. So to me, create incentives over and above. And if they hit their number, great, bonus. Bless them, give them a check and go, hey, way to go, nice work. And if they didn't get their bonuses, hey, still, they did a great job. And now you'll have a happier sales force because it becomes a grind out there, and then they're just going to go somewhere else. So they end up shopping or getting poached and going to another company.
Every time I talk to a CEO or a senior VP of sales, they always mention the same frustration. They say, how can I get more output from my salespeople? They're not hungry enough for the bonus or the commissions. They settle for less, as you said. And I think the problem is that, especially in the professional sales environment, people make too much base and they're happy and they're content to just live with your base.
Yeah, I think you actually said it in your response is you got the base, it was nice, but it wasn't helping you get to what you needed to for what you valued. And so what I try, if I'm a sales manager and I'm in leadership and I'm working with you as a salesperson, I want to know what it is you value. So let me give you an example. 2 tall buildings, 100 stories up. I used to use the World Trade Centers, but they're not here anymore. So think 2 tall buildings, 100 stories up, and I get a steel girder. It's the middle of January, in downtown New York. I get a steel girder 100 feet wide, 8 inches, or wide rather, 100 feet in length, and I put it across the top 2 buildings. I say, George, I will give you $100,000 to walk like a tightrope, no safety wires. You can't shimmy, you got to walk. It's crappy outside. The conditions are horrible, right? You have to walk. If you fall, it's Splatsville, right? You're going down 100 stories to the pavement. If you make it across, I'm going to give you $100,000. Are you going to walk?
Probably not.
Right. 250,000, 500,000, no amount of money are you going to do this. So money isn't the motivator. But if I took Diane, and she's 2 years old at the time, your daughter, and I held her off the building by the ankles no, I say 2, not 16. It's for a reason. At 16, you might go, my wife and I are young, we'll make another one, right? We really must. But if I hold Diane off by the ankles and she's 2, and I say, walk or I'm dropping the kid. Are you walking?
I'm running.
Exactly. So what changed? The environment's the same. The risk is the same. The conditions on the ground are the same. Everything's the same. But
motivation.
I linked your behavior to what motivates you, and you were willing to do it. So what I like to do is, rather than say, okay, we're going to have a sales contest, and everyone who wins and hits their number is going to get a set of golf clubs, and we're going to go golfing for 3 days. Well, that's great if you're a golfer, but what if you're not a golfer? So what I do is I would ask salespeople within organizations, I always go, if money was no object, you could treat yourself to something that was just special, what would you buy? So here's a good example. I had a guy working for me, and his quota at the time in the training was about $300,000 a year. And he always did a great job. He always hit his number. And finally, after about 3 years, I said, hey, and his name was Eric. I said, Eric, you're not getting your quote. You're not exceeding your targets. What's up? And he goes, no point. And I go, well, what do you mean no point? He says, I'm already working my butt off. And he goes, no point. And if I go make more money in bonus, my wife already has it allocated. The kitchen needs redoing, kids for college. She's already got it spent. So it's just me slaving it out there and do it. No point. I said, well, what would you buy with money, no object? And he goes, well, mountain bike. I go, you'd buy a mountain bike? And I go, well, you make enough money, go buy a mountain bike. And he goes, I can't. These are like $8,000. And this is 15 years ago. I go, they make mountain bikes that are $8,000. And he goes, it's titanium. It weighs as much as a quarter. He's telling me all the features to it. And I go, well, what if I buy you the mountain bike? And he goes, well, what do you mean? I said, what if we had a contest and you hit your quota and exceeded it, hit the target goal, and I just bought you a mountain bike as the prize? And he looked at me and he kind of smiled and he goes, oh, that would work. He hit that target in 4 months. He exceeded that target. His wife even says to me, I don't know what the deal is. You got his bike, but do you know why he sleeps with it? I go, no idea. It's probably, but the point is we do rewards for entire teams instead of a reward on a one-to-one. So just as we want to service clients on a one-to-one basis and treat them as individuals, we have to do the same thing with our sales team.
A little perk. HR people call it non-monetary rewards. So this podcast is called Leading Sales. I spent half of my time speaking with leaders, talking about leadership, and the other half talking with salespeople and sales experts and coaches and trainers like you. But You've trained sales teams, and therefore you have spent a lot of time with sales leaders, right? With those senior VPs of sales, the CEOs. Can you tell us about how you can affect the behaviors of sales teams by affecting leadership at the top?
Well, I think, and that's a great observation. What happens is if you work for, say you come to work for a company and you're doing well and you're killing it, you're hitting all the numbers, but we want to do it in order to pay you more to keep you, we promote you. And so we take you out of the field and we promote you into management. And now we've taken you away your superpower, and you might not even be a manager or have a management experience. So for me, I'm a rainmaker. I love going out and making it rain. I don't want to run it. I have an office operations manager that I actually report to, that I've hired, that I report to them. And so because I'm the owner of the company, the founder, I already know I don't want to do that part of the business. I want to do what I'm best at, with my superpower, my unique ability. So I think managing, being a project manager, those are all different skill sets. And so pay your best salespeople well. Some can be promoted and do well, and they're great trainers and coaches, and they do fine. But sometimes you have to bring in just a trainer or coach, somebody who's got some management experience or knows how to scale, delegate, and coach. And really, in today's environment, it's about coaching. How can I empower you? If you think of it this way, think of the pyramid. And the old model of selling, we had the top of the pyramid and the bottom of the pyramid. And we had salespeople, the customer service, and the executive is up at the top. Invert the pyramid. So at the leader is at the bottom, supporting the sales and service teams. It should be enabling them. So sales enablement, revenue enablement, all comes from give them the tools. What do they need? Coach them so that they can go and do the job and get out of their way. I think that's from the organizations we get to work with. That's our approach we take to it. And I'll get a good example of that. BMO, Bank of Montreal. I know you remember them, but they're BMO in the US, BMO Harris. And I work with pretty much most of the banks, of the 5 major ones. They had mortgage brokers. And the mortgage brokers, I was working with the mortgage brokers, were earning $400,000 a year selling mortgages, all on commission, 100% commission. The VPs were making $250, and they've gone to Harvard, they went to Yale, to these top business schools. Well, they changed the comp program because they go, well, why is this guy who's a sales consultant, mortgage broker, he's making almost twice what I make. I've got the education, he doesn't, but he's making it all happen. So they changed the comp program. Well, all the mortgage broke off and started their own companies and made $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 a year. So companies look at it, well, as I move up, I should be making more. Yeah, with responsibility. But if you're in a sales role, your salespeople should be your highest paid people. And with most of the organization we work with, they are. Some of them make phenomenal amounts of money and then keep incentive. And just why wouldn't you just keep empowering the Rainmaker and enable them to keep growing and do what they're great at doing?
Well, I think we've covered a number of topics and some good connections to your early days, your career, your 2 books, Becoming Preferred and Dance of the Rainmaker, your career as a speaker, as a coach. And I want to hit you with a few rapid fire questions and see how you do. I don't know if you've ever done this, but it's a lot of fun, and our listeners will enjoy getting to know you a little better. Let's start with this. Coffee, tea, or something stronger before you go on a stage?
Coffee.
Always
Sometimes
coffee.
tea. Before I go on stage, I'll do lemon and honey.
Yeah, I do the same. Lemon tea and honey. Can you define Dance of the Rainmaker in 1 sentence?
Structure. It's a sales methodology and structure.
How about Becoming Preferred?
Becoming the emotional favorite.
Emotional favorite. Aisle or window?
Oh, aisle.
What was the biggest deal closing moment that still gives you some goosebumps when you remember it?
I did a deal for a training deal, a 5-year contract when I was just starting my career. And it was for 1.4 million. And I had the client, I was having lunch with the client, a different client in Phoenix. And the account phoned me up and said, hey, we'll do this, but we 1.2. And I was going to fall off my seat at 1.2. I thought, what a great contract. And I thought, I put things into practice. I said, well, let me get back to you. That's a good offer. Let me finish lunch and I'll do some noodling, talk to my team. I just talked to my client, we were eating Mexican restaurant in Phoenix. It was good. And I phoned the client back after. I said, we're really close. We can do it for 1.4. And they went, okay. And I was really happy, but then I thought, oh man, they said yes too quick. Maybe I could have got 1.6, but that was still a good moment. And then I had another one with a major corporation, and it was a $300,000 contract. And at the very last minute, they said, we want it for 2 years, not 1 year. So we're prepared to double it with no increase. So it goes from 300,000 to 600,000. And I just looked at them and I'm like, I made it look like this was really tough for us to do, but inside I'm doing backflips. So those were lucky, but hey.
Yes, yes. Those are good ones. What is the best sales advice you've ever received?
That's a great question. There's so many, but I would say preparation and continuous learning. You're never done. You're going to get a glimpse of peace, but once in a while, but as soon as you think you got it, figure it out, break it, and keep getting better.
That's great.
Continuous improvement. Let's call it that. Continuous improvement.
Continuous improvement. We never stop learning, right?
That's right.
When did you do your best reading? Is it early in the morning, in the afternoon, before going to bed?
No, morning. So at nighttime, it's fiction. I read at night. I'll read a story or historical fiction because that's one of my favorites, or biographies or whatever I'm reading. Anything for business or work. Well, my brain computer. I'm a 5 a.m. guy, so by 5:30, I'm working on personal R&D, which means I'm usually reading a book, and I like to do it on Kindle. Then I have notes that I'm writing along with it, and I write things down. So I diagnose a book. I'm actually pulling key gems from. I'm not just reading it because I'm going to forget it. And then once I get that key bit of information, I try and share a piece of that day with somebody I'm talking to. Hey, I was just reading in a book, George, and I read this. And the minute I tell you about it, I have it forever. I remember it.
That's great. So, Michael, this has been fun. We've connected so many times over the years, and this has been very unique for me to be on this seat and having you on my own podcast now, Leading Sales. I know our listeners are probably wondering, how can they find you? How can they learn more about you, what you do, your books, your podcasts, and also if they want to hire you as a keynote speaker or a trainer?
michaelvickers.com, or if they Google Becoming Preferred, we show up in the first few pages, everything's in there. So we Becoming Preferred or Michael Vickers, and I'll show up and you'll be able to find us, no problem. michaelvickers.com is an easy place, and you can always put the information in your show notes or links, and happy to help them.
That's great. Good to hear. This has been fun again. Thank you so much, Michael. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Hey, my pleasure, George. Thanks. And congratulations on the show. And I know you'll do a great job. I know you're thorough with it. And wish you many happy, exciting episodes.
And we should do it again. I'm sure we have plenty of more material to cover. So probably we'll do a second round of this and repeat it down the road.
That sounds great. Anytime.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
And that's a wrap. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Leading Sales. Please make sure to subscribe to our podcast in your favorite platform. And don't forget to visit our page, leadingsales-podcast.com, for more resources on the art, science, and the dynamics between leadership and sales. Until our next episode.